Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Bassitt, and I am part of the E3, which is the Expert Epic Entrepreneurs, and I represent the 50s. And Dottie's with me today, and she represents the 60s. And then we have others that represent the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Stephanie being the 20s, Jennifer being the 30s, and Yasmin being the 40s. And so we've got 5 generations. We've come together to put together this amazing journey, an epic journey, if you will, of all of us sharing, some things really that each generation brings, but also our areas of where we feel like we could really make a difference and contribute. And I am going to be talking about relationships, and Dottie, who's great with the relationships as well, is on here with me today. Yasmin's going to join me tomorrow because it's all about this wonderful synergy. I think, Dottie, you would have to agree that we've created even as a group in building the relationships and the content for this program. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I'm hearing you loud and clear, Cheryl. It's great to be here today.
So this is our Get Biz Lean 30-day Epic Coaching Challenge, and excited to be sharing today about how we celebrate ourselves or celebrate others, and we celebrate our journey and life in general. So I think it's going to be a little bit different than maybe even I expected when I first started putting this program together. And what I mean by that is first of all, we're going to go in reverse order of what I just said, even though that's what the title of it was. We're going to reverse it. And then secondarily, I think the other thing is that when we talk about celebrate, the word celebrate might have a little different meaning in some cases than what we might be thinking about. We think about celebrate where we're, popping open the cork bottles for a big celebration. And we certainly want to do that and have fun. But at the same time, I think we'd all agree that sometimes celebrating, especially ourselves, might be more about celebrating or cherishing ourselves, respecting others. That's how we celebrate others. That's how we celebrate ourselves. So part of this will be a discussion or just sharing around those concepts. And I think really what all of this is about, particularly maybe in my section of what I'm doing around relationships, is for you to pick and choose what makes sense for you. Because we're sort of, and I think that's going to be true of everybody that's sharing, what works for one may not work for other, but what we hope is that it stimulates good thought. So as we get started into this, I'm going to do, Dottie, why don't you go ahead and just talk about one of the things I had said, and I don't know if you heard me, was just the fact that I think the group, the 5 of us coming together, which was really, you've pulled us all together. These are all people that you knew that we now all know each other, but just the synergy that's created in the relationships between us.
Yeah, Cheryl, it's really great because I have met all of you through different situations, through being online with marketing. Mm-hmm. For instance, Stephanie, I met her on LinkedIn. Cheryl, I met you through another project we were working on. Yasmin, I actually met in person when we were taking a seminar. And Jen, I met actually through her dad, who I was doing business with. And when he told me about her, I was like, oh my goodness, I think we have found the mystery woman, which was the person in the 30s who was the last person that we added on.
Right.
We were wanting people in each generation and people who were strong in their coaching and their mentoring and so forth, because we felt like, gosh, this is what we have to give. Because I'm going to say this, Tony Robbins has said time and time again that mentoring and coaching is one of the most important things you can receive if you want to be successful in business. As you said yesterday, Cheryl, all coaches have coaches because they understand how important it is. And I don't know anybody who's been successful in business who hasn't had some type of coaching and mentoring along the way. So we've been in a situation where we want to, give back. And so relationships and what you're doing, all of these were formed around business. And so this is how it works. And we want to help you all understand better why relationships are so important to your business, not just in your life. I mean, most people get it, that it's important in life, but it can make or break your business.
Mm-hmm. And it does. And I'll share real quickly, one of the doctors that I know, he hires at the hospital, right? for the doctors that come in and work with the patients. And he said, it used to be, I used to think, man, I got to pick the one that had the 4.0 and was the valedictorian of the medical class. And he said, what I found out is that I really needed to pick the one that did well, but really knew how to relate to people, because we all want to feel like we're, in a relationship, no matter who it is, with the way that we can communicate and be respected during our process. So he said, I realized real quickly that it doesn't mean they couldn't be the smartest in their class, but the most important quality I was looking for was someone that could really relate to people. So I thought that was sort of an interesting shift that he had, right? And we're all talking about shift. How do we shift our perspective on things? So with that, what I'm going to do, and again, I'm going to sort of shift, and we're going to take it from the big picture down to us as individuals, and then and go in that order, and then bring it back out to the big picture again, if you will. So
that's great, Cheryl.
Let me
I'll make sure that we're seeing.
Yeah, make sure I do my screen right. I notice the entire screen. I'm learning.
Talking about the importance of those relationships in work. I know Robbie called me yesterday, and at the end of the day, this was so good for her to hear. But they said, you're our favorite monitor that we've ever had. These people have been doing research for many years in the medical field. And I really believe she's very good at what she does, but she treats people so well when she goes into a situation where she's actually monitoring their work. She doesn't make them feel like she's talking down to them or anything like that. She really forms this, like, we're here together to work with you. And that is so important.
It is. And, it makes me, I had this conversation with my son who at one time, and I just said, we want to be in business with, we want to hang out with people. We love people. That make us feel good. Right. So you don't just love someone because of who they are. You love someone because of how they make you feel. You don't get in business just because of who somebody is. You get in business with somebody because you trust them and you like them, and you want to be in business with them most of the time, right?
So I think you love going on vacation with. I mean,
right.
Seriously, that's how I look at it a lot of times. I mean, wow, would I love to go on vacation with all 5 of us with the E3 group? Oh my goodness,
we're doing that.
That would be great.
We're doing that soon, I hope. That's one of our goals, obviously, is for all 5 of us to get. I mean, we're together all the time, obviously through technology, which is amazing. I mean, good Lord. I mean, you think about how we can communicate in ways we never could, which takes it up a notch in terms of understanding the value of relationships and how to communicate. So obviously talk about some of that, but it's also the beauty in it. But it's really nice when we can all get in the same room, especially if it's the sunshine outside with palm trees around, in my opinion. But, that may just be me.
Yeah. And I can see your screen great.
Okay, good. So you see the second screen now where it says Celebrate the World?
I sure do.
Okay, perfect. Well, I wanted to start here, and the reason I did is because I'm going to start this off by sharing a little bit of a story. And it's funny because I heard somebody actually share this the other day, and they're currently dealing with it. And I don't think that, I'm sure we have times where this is profound to us more than others, but as the world sort of seems like this crazy place, I was really going through a challenge a few years back, and something happened that really offered a shift for me, a mind shift, if you will. And I was talking with a pastor at church. It wasn't even the church that I go to. I just was having this great conversation with him. And I just, I felt really comfortable with him. He was really engaging, and we had a really nice dialogue. And I said, I have young kids. So that tells you how long ago, because now my boys are 23 and 26. I said, but I have young kids, and, I look at the world, and I'm sort of find myself getting kind of scared about what kind of world, is going to be there for them. And I said, I pick up the newspaper. Of course, now it's just turning on our computers, and there's this negative, there's so much negative out there, right? And I was allowing it to sort of absorb around me too much. And I think we do have to protect that. And what he said to me was, and we were sitting at a place where there was a picture behind him, and he said, you see the picture behind me? And it was very similar to the picture I'm showing on my screen. And what he said to me was, he said, what I would just encourage you to remember is that there's still so much beauty in the world. And he said, and the other thing is, see, remember this, is that the day that the headlines in the newspaper is talking about, like the big headline is about something good that's happening, and that's it. And that is what it is every day, because that's no longer the norm. He said, that's when you need to worry. And it was such a shift in thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You see all the bad headlines and the news focuses on that. But what if we opened up the paper and because there was no more good news to report, that was always the main headline now, because there's some good thing that happened in the world, because it was in the minority at this point. And we know there's so much good that happens every day. So I just think this was a little reminder to protect ourselves around that.
Yeah, it's just all about perspective, Cheryl, and we can really choose our perspective. And what we focus on. We've talked a lot about that in the first week. What we focus on, you become, you get, you discover. So It's really important what you focus on.
It is so important. And I know, this is an analogy, and I think you guys probably share this as well, but important again for me was that, in the eye of a hurricane, because there's all this swirling around you, but if you can stand in the eye of the hurricane and look up, right, you can still see with clarity. And that was a really great visual for me that someone shared with me actually a couple of years ago. But I think we were talking about that even as a group the other day. So I found that picture and thought that was a great way of thinking about it. No matter what's going on around you, you always have a choice to sort of stand in your truth in the middle, and just know, that's where the clarity is going to come from. And then there's the story of two wolves. And I assume that, Dottie, you've heard this story.
Yeah, we talked about it. So I love this one, though.
I do too. So I'm going to just read it real quick. And this was something I had put in a blog a while back too. But one evening, an Indian chief told his grandson about a battle that wages in his heart between two wolves. One is filled with anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, guilt, regret, and greed. The other is overflowing with good, joy, peace, love, kindness, empathy, compassion, and faith. The grandson thought for a minute and then asked his grandfather, well, which wolf wins? And the grandfather simply replied, the one that we choose to feed. And again, just another way of kind of looking at the world and what perspective we're bringing to it. And I always thought that was such a beautiful way of thinking about it, right?
Like one of the most powerful short stories I've ever heard.
It really is. So that brings me up. So we go from wolves to dog.
Oh, I love yeller.
For animals, love animals. And I think, Dottie, you've probably heard me share this before, but I'll do this and then we'll talk about this, because this can be a really great sort of topic of discussion. But it's, do you suffer from old yeller syndrome? And what old yeller syndrome is something that came out of my family, because when my boys were young, I got this great idea, at least I thought it was a great idea, to go get the movie Old Yeller. And I'm sure you've seen that, of course, right, Dottie?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So it had been a long time since I'd seen it. And I'm not really sure why I thought that I would enjoy it, because it's a sad story, right? I mean, yeah. Travis shoots his dog at the end. And it's really, not a happy ending in that way. So, but we watched it and the boys loved it, because it's a boy and his dog, and that part of the story is great. And but then when it got to the part where Travis raises his gun and shoots Old Yeller, we're all crying and sobbing, right? So, but the boys loved the movie, and so they kept playing it. And every time, I'd be working doing stuff and they'd watch it, and then they'd call me in for the part where Old Yeller was going to get shot, right? Mom, you got to come in here because Old Yeller's, going to be shot. And then we'd all sit there and we'd bawl our eyes out again. Well, after they watched it probably 25 times, they started calling me, and Mom, you got to come in here. It's the part where Old Yeller's going to get shot. And I'd go in and I noticed all of a sudden that I was the only one left crying. They had kind of gotten, past it, if you will. And so anyway, about, by the time they watched it the 50th time, and they're like, Mom, come in here. It's the part where Old Yeller is going to be shot. And I remember standing in the kitchen making dinner and walking in there and looking at it and thinking, oh my God, just shoot that darn dog and get it over with so I can get back to making dinner. And it was sort of funny because I had shared that with my mom that night, and we had this conversation that sort of happened about, well, how many other things in our life, because we sort of became desensitized, if you will, to Old Yeller's fate.
Right.
I mean, basically that's what happened. So, and I can't remember so here were the questions we sort of debated that night, and I think that it just kind of makes you stop and think. These were things I wrote, this has probably been 4 or 5 years ago that I actually had written about it. But, did we really have to run around like crazy people in the mornings before school? When did that become normal? What about the portion sizes that they serve at restaurants? Is that one meal, or is that supposed to be two in reality? Should we accept a lower standard for how we treat each other? Can we really expect that our kids not to bully each other when our political leaders do it every day? Think about that. I wrote that years ago, and it's worse today. Ever been. When did it become okay for us to spew hate or disrespect for one another on TV or social media? Are reality shows really reflecting reality? And should we just take drugs instead of taking responsibility for our health? Do we really believe that texting should just replace picking up the phone, or even better, meeting with someone face to face? And that one really rings true for me, Nadadi, because my son, I think I might have shared with you, one of my sons, had gone out with a girl for 3 or 4 months, and that's how she broke up with him, was over a text.
No, I couldn't believe that.
I didn't think that anybody would really do that, but they do. And then do we really just not have enough time for each other? So I guess I would throw it back, because I'm sure there's things that, we just sort of get in this groove of accepting that this is just the way that it is. And in reality, we need to take a look at it and say, is this really okay? And for us, and everybody's going to be different, but does that strike anything with you as far as?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the one that really pops out to me, should we accept a lower standard for how we treat each other? And I've observed this, and Ronnie and I talk about this, that oftentimes we will treat somebody who is not, what I'm saying, like your personal, really inner circle, your spouse, okay? Mm-hmm. We will speak to them in a way that we would never speak to a friend. And yet most of the time, they're our best friend. Mm-hmm. And why is that? Because we take advantage of the fact that we know they're not going anywhere, they're going to be there. But one of the things that the Gottmans said in their relationship counseling, and why they can tell within 5 minutes if your relationship is going to make it, is because of the ratio of positive to negative comments. And I believe it was like that you need 5 to 1 ratio of positive to negative comments, because what happens is you build up an emotional bank account, so that when you do have that negative one, it's not a deal breaker. You know what I'm saying? Because we all have days when we're not at our best and we're frustrated and we fall off the handle and we have to apologize. I talked about that already.
Yeah.
That's so important that we build up our emotional bank account in relationship, in our business, in our personal life, with our friends. And then people are able to step back and much more easily forgive. But if it becomes a constant pattern, one day you're going to say something and that relationship is going to be over. And you may be scratching your head going, what happened? Mm-hmm. Maybe they did put it up with it for a while. I know that Maya Angelou had this great saying, and she says, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
Right.
Is that great or what?
It's so great. I think you might have shared that with me recently, and I've actually shared it a couple times because it is so powerful.
Because we think we're going to change other people.
Yeah.
And that's the real key thing, I think, Cheryl, in relationship many times, is to remember that the only person I can really alter is me. Yeah. And oftentimes when we're out there trying to change others, it's really something within us that we don't like. And that triggers us to look at others' behaviors in that way. But the real issue is with us.
It is. And it's funny because it made me think about when I was in my first marriage. I started going through, doing a lot more reading, and I was really doing some self-development. And I started just casually leaving books out on the table with certain things circled, but I was circling them for him and not for me.
Yeah.
I was like trying to drop drop a hint, right? Like, well, he needs to read this, right? So, so instead of reading the book for myself at times, I was reading it, trying to figure out what he was supposed to get out of it. And of course, I couldn't get him to open the book. So I just thought, well, I'll just leave it out and I'll circle stuff and maybe he'll see it. But yeah, I mean, the only person that I could change is myself. You know.
Cheryl, one thing I will share, and I'm going to put the screen back on as I say this, because I just want people to really feel this, but this is what I have experienced and found along the way. If I want somebody to change their behavior, the number one thing I have to do is change mine. And when I change mine, it's like a dance. I open up a new space for them to move into. I remember early on in my relationship, I was new, you know, to this area, and there would be things said to me that I thought needed more feedback and information, and really it didn't. I thought there was just a lack of understanding. So my sharing of information made it sound defensive. So I read a book, and you know, it was just amazing. It was called Undefended Love. It's the #1 relationship book I refer people to. And what I did was this. Every time that little thing that was triggering me was said, I would say, "Thank you for sharing, Robbie. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that." And after 2 weeks, she came to me and she said, "You know what? I don't know why I keep picking on you about little things. I'm really sorry about that." Now, at that time, Cheryl, is when I shared with her what I had done. So you see, I didn't keep saying, you know, "Why are you picking on me?" And this kind of, that was being defensive or sharing more information. So it was one of the biggest ahas and one of the biggest shifts that happened in our relationship. And I learned it from that book, Undefended Love, because that's what we often do. So I hope that's helpful, but I can tell you it's been extremely helpful for us.
That's not one I've read. I'll have to check that out. Undefended, you said?
Undefended Love.
Okay, I'll have to check that one. That's not one I've.
Because think about it, Cheryl. In relationship, one of the most important things we can do is trust and not defend our position. And oftentimes, what do? We do the opposite. We don't trust. We live life as if, you know, somebody's out to get us, you know. And if we think somebody's out to get us and we don't trust, guess what kind of situations we're opening up a space for? People who aren't trustworthy and people who treat us poorly. But when I believe that, I really believe, and you know, Cheryl, this is I mean, I hope you don't mind me segueing into this, but just with the 5 of you, see, for 8 years now, I have said daily in the mirror to myself, walking down the street, I want to connect, I want to engage, innovate. I want to collaborate. I want to leverage our unique collective talents to form epic partnerships globally. Mm-hmm. And I say that all the time. And so I'm not shocked when people like you and Stephanie and Jen and Yasmin come into my life. I'm just sort of like, what took you so long?
Well, I think, well, you know, when you and I met, we just clicked.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and of course, we got to spend some time, quality time, you know, when you were actually visiting Ohio, which was recent for a conference and whatever. So, you know, but I think when you do start to put, and you're right, it's absolutely about putting it out there with intent. And we have definitely continued to just attract the right kind of energy and people and that synergy that gets created as a result of it. So I'm so excited about the 5 of us that have come together to create this. But that doesn't just happen, right? It is with intent that it happens. And
yeah, and Cheryl, the other thing too, to think about it, you and I met in a project that simply didn't work out, you know, wasn't bad people, you know, just didn't work out as it was supposed to. Yasmin and I, the same way.
That's true.
So, you know, lots of times you have to look at what is the silver lining out of a situation. You can either be negative, and it goes back to the perspective you were talking about. You can be negative, but if you really hold up and look at what do I want my life to be about? Who are the people I want in my life? And of course, Stephanie's friend power, I mean, that's what it's all about. You know, the people you have around you are going to determine your success. And so just because a situation didn't work out, I didn't ditch my relationship with you, and I didn't ditch my relationship with Yasmin. We knew we would be connected for life. I mean, as well as, you know, we're going to be. And so we make that happen.
Absolutely. Let me, I close, and I don't know if I needed to do anything, but I couldn't see you, and I was trying to figure it out, and then the cat came in the room and distracted me for a second, so I can just screen share again. Like my ADD kicked in there. Sorry about that, because I really want to focus, and I heard everything you were saying, but I know I was, for a second there when you first started, I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing, and then I got attacked by the cat. So anyway, apologize.
No problem. Is that what's making me have these sneezes? I was trying to kind of stay off camera, as you know, because I've got all this sneezing happening, and I don't know. I'm allergic to cats, but I don't really think you can get the, you know, that reaction.
Pretty high tech going on there. If that was actually able to happen. So let me try this here again and see if I can get. But I want it. I would love it. I will try to go back and forth a little more, because I do think it's so much nicer when we're talking and working.
Oh, you just caught me.
What's that?
I said, you just caught me in the hangout, sneezing and coughing.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, sorry about that.
No problem. That's why I've got the runny eyes today.
We got cats attacking us and colds going on and everything. That's all right. We're standing in our reality, right?
That's okay.
Right. Okay, let me get to.
Yeah, there you go. It's big again.
Okay, so as we celebrate others, and you know, we talked about this a lot yesterday. So, and I wanted to go back to this because yesterday we had a great conversation about being a dot, and I told you I had to wait till I had a dottie in my life so we could do the be a dot concept. And I did, if you notice, I did change it to time for shift, and then shift happens, right, instead of change. You know, the whole concept was being able to do the drops of thought. And we won't spend as much time obviously today on this, but what I wanted to do was share how I used it last night, because I had somebody ask me a question that watched the program, which was a surprise, and said that their question wasn't a surprise, I should say, that it was about, you know, well, what if you what if you give a bunch of drops of thought to somebody that doesn't want them? And you know, Dottie, I mean, so I thought, well, I would share how I normally do it, but I will say this is that, you know, drops of thought are not to go out and become a drip on someone, right? I mean, drip is, what is it? Isn't that Chinese torture if you drip a sink?
I was getting ready to say, I think that is, you know.
Yeah. So you don't want to just, you know, this is not about opening the floodgates on someone. This is about where you feel like you could really add some value, and you don't go around just doing it. You do it within, you know, out of sincerity. So I want to be clear about that. But so I was at my husband's practice, and there was somebody sitting there that I'd seen a few times, and she was talking about how she goes through the holidays, and this will lead into even what you guys are talking about next week. But she was talking about how she says, every year I gain, you know, 10 pounds during, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas or New Year's. And she said, I can never get through that holiday without doing that, because once I start on the sweets, it just keeps going. And I said to her, I said, would you be open to me sharing something that has actually worked well for me? Because I too, and I do, have a major sweet tooth. And so she said, sure. So that's a drop, right? And so what I shared with her real quickly was the 3-bite rule. There's been a number of studies, and I don't know about the studies in great detail, but I will tell you that I have a lot of people who've tried this. And if you take 3 bites of something, small bites, walk away from it. So it's maybe your favorite dessert, and you walk away from it 15 minutes later, just allow a 10 or 15 minute break from it. And most of the time people will come back and not want it. But because 90 to 95% of your taste satisfaction or what you were craving has been met, and it gives your body time to be aware of that.
Yeah, that is great.
So it's just a great little tip, right? And I said in that way, but if 15 minutes later, you still really want it, you know, then I guess you just eat it, but during the holidays. But for most people, that gets them through the holidays without going overboard and really triggering that sweet tooth in a bad way. Because most people can take a few bites and not have it go into full force. At least I can, and it works for a lot of people. So that was a little drop of thought. And she sent me a little note this morning, and she said that was so helpful, and I've already shared it with 3 people.
Isn't that great? I mean, she passed it on.
She passed it on. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that's a great way to show how that can kind of work. But it's not to just open up the faucet and drown somebody, So I just wanted to kind of pull that out. But it also brought me back to this communication piece that we talked yesterday about, the importance of listening and how important it is to really engage and listen. But we also need to understand that when we are communicating, how much of that communication, which is why I like it better when we switch back to the screens, how much of that's really getting conveyed through not just our spoken words, which can be very powerful, but the tone of our voice and our body language and all those things go into it. And what I wanted to do, this is a really, really short little clip, Dottie, but I want to play it because I don't know if you remember this commercial for Singular. I don't even know if Singular is a cell phone company anymore that it is available. Do you know? I don't even know.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Anyway, this, I think when you see this, you'll remember this. And you have to this is, the quality of this is not as good as what I would like. And it goes kind of fast, but you'll get the gist of it. And it's like 30 seconds. So, but.
I have not had enough to hear with you, young lady. Why do you insist on treating me like an adult? Because you insist on acting like one. Now you're getting this new phone. But it's so small. I really like it. Why is it always what I want? Well, do you have any idea how much money this is not going to cost me? I love you. I know you really mean that. You never hated me, and you never will. You are the most grateful little...
Singular is changing the conversation about cell phones.
I've never seen that.
Never seen that.
Yeah.
So, I thought about that when I was really thinking about the communication piece, because I mean, their words did not match their tone at all, right?
Exactly.
When she says, do you have any idea how much this is not going to cost me?
I know.
I just had to laugh, right? So anyway, I remember that commercial because it just really stuck with me. But I think that's what we need to keep in mind, that certainly our words are very powerful, right? Because we know that the words we choose can have an impact on someone, but it's also about the tone. It's also about our body language and what is around that. And, so I don't know if you want to add some things into that, but I thought that commercial kind of did it all in terms of making that point.
Well, what is interesting is thinking about online versus in person, but still body language can come through in hangouts or, whatever the situation is.
It does. And I think, but here's what I wanted to say about that, because you're absolutely right. And I think I laugh about this, but because obviously the written word is so powerful. But do you see down at the bottom where I add the written word and then I put with emojis?
Yes.
And emojis do help. I mean, sometimes, right, when we're trying to have those conversations.
Yes.
Because you've heard the expression, read between the lines. Like somebody's saying something, but they tell you to read between the lines. I sort of feel like the emojis are the between the lines sometimes. They sort of allow you to attach the feeling. And so I did something a little bit funny here just to make that point as well. And Dottie, I spared you because I was actually going to do this to you instead of myself, but I decided I wouldn't because I didn't get permission first. But so.
Oh, this is so funny.
So do you like my hair?
And, I love it.
And so your response could be all the same, nice hair, right? But you could put an emoji with it that might actually give it more meaning.
Right, totally different meaning. No doubt about it.
How you're saying it. And I can so I felt like this is a hairstyle that could be accepted or rejected, but not ignored. So, but at any rate, I was just kind of laughing, and I don't think I really put that on my head very well. But
now we know what you would look like as a punk rocker.
Yeah, not good. Anyway,
I think it's kind of funky looking.
It is kind of funky looking. So
on the right day at a concert, I would love it.
yeah, okay. See, so you can give me a high five emoji.
Yeah, I would. I'd say you're still a 10-star.
Okay. But
11-star. Remember, you like 11, so it's got to be 11-star. You got to have one to grow on there.
yes, but this gets back to when even when you're talking with someone and you're apologizing, right? There's a lot of ways to say I'm sorry. You can say, oh, I'm sorry, or you can say, okay, I'm sorry, or you can really genuinely say, I'm really sorry. I mean, right? It's all in the tone. It's the same words. And I think sometimes people will say, well, I apologized.
Yeah.
I said
and the body language that would go with that is probably very defensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's all in. And so I think we should never underestimate the tone that we're using with people or the body language that we're using, because people read that and we read it way more than we realize. And so I guess in the communication piece, I wanted to bring that out. And certainly as you're online, but we do a lot of this Skyping, right? And that's the reason it's so much easier to build the relationships online, because we can actually hear the tone of the voice. And a lot of times we can see each other and, all of that. So, but then this gets back to the epic piece. And I really want to touch back base on this again, because when you really honor someone and you can speak their epic language, right? Then you are also giving them, and I love this benefit of the doubt relationship. I think it's so powerful that, and I mentioned this yesterday, but if we're at point A and we want to get to Z, and we both know that we have the same goal, we want the same things, we just have different ways of taking in information and giving out information and sharing that process with someone. So if we give each other the benefit of the doubt that we're all trying to get to the same place, so that we don't have to blame or pass judgment, or just and also appreciate the uniqueness and the skills that each one of us brings to it, and learn to appreciate that instead of fearing it or judging it, then we have a much better relationship. And I thought maybe you wanted to just go ahead, Dottie, and I'm going to put you back on screen, just talk a little bit about the epic language and how that would help somebody get through, from A to Z, but have different ways of getting there.
Yeah, Cheryl, when we discover our epic code, we actually get to look not just at ourselves and, wow, if I have a certain piece of the code that's third or fourth, and when do I need to pull those in, or how do I need to be aware about that? I'll give you an example in a business relationship I had recently. The person was an I first, and then a C, and then a P, and then an E. And so we had the discussion about how awesome this person is, his research, and just and connecting to that's the second code. But with the E being at the end, that there might be times when he needs to really be aware of that, because he might find that he gets analysis to paralysis. And needs to go ahead and bring that E forward a little bit quicker sometimes to make a good decision. Absolutely, it's important to research. But sometimes with that coding the way it was going to be too far at the end at times. So, you just really have to look at that. And right. I would say, like for myself personally, I'm a E, C, and then a I and a P. Okay, so those processes and all, I really had to dig into that and bring that forward to create what I created with Discover Your Epic Code. Think about that. I'm not totally weak in that, but it's not my primary or my secondary. My primary and secondary, actually, when we do a deeper dive test in our actual in-person training, I'm a 43 out of 50. Now, what I was going to share here is Robbie, my spouse, is P first, C second, I third, and E last.
Okay.
So sometimes we look at each other and we go, what did you say? And the point here with those two kind of codes together, here's it in a nutshell. I see the big picture. I see the forest. And as she says, she sees every tree and every little knot on the tree. But you know what? I love working with people that are that code, because I so honor and respect the codes that aren't my strength.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a shared sense of values and what's important, but the way we respond through our values is differently. Does it make sense?
Right.
So I have to just keep in mind sometimes how to language something. And sometimes I'm wanting to make a decision quicker, and then there's this, hey, let's wait. So that's a good balance. So when you're looking for people in business, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and we coded 3 people, and all 3 of them had their E at the end. And I said, now y'all are going to have to really know sometimes that enough research has been done. They were all like, the 3 codes were kind of mixed in them, but similar in some ways. So, they were going to have to realize sometimes somebody's going to have to say, it's time to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the codes can interact with one another. And hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah. And again, it's really just a way to really have respect. And like you said, speak their language, which is really important to do. Just like you said yesterday, if you speak English and French and you're talking to somebody who's French, or you speak English and Greek, say, because we know someone who's Greek, it wouldn't have been fair if all this time we were speaking in English if we knew how to speak Greek, right? And so it's just really making it so that there's a better communication between another person, and I think it's great. So
if you think about the person you're dealing with in business, and you really take to heart, what Tony Robbins has always said, which is let your prospect determine your presentation, then the focus needs to be on them, not me. And so when I do that and I understand how they like to receive information, which is, really identified by their first code, then I'm going to say, okay, this is how I need to present to them. And when we can discover their epic code in under 90 seconds, that becomes very powerful, because in the moment I can think on my feet, like, right. Oh my goodness, I came in here with a bunch of diagrams and all, and this person is an E.
Mm-hmm.
They would probably run me out of their office. I would just, maybe I would refer to my diagrams, pick them up and say, hey, Harold, listen, I've put together a lot of charts and all, but let me just get to the bottom line. And then I would get to the bottom line and tell them what it is I was there to share with them.
Well, and I'm not, again, it's about respecting all the codes, but I have to laugh when I think back the first time we ever went into a counseling session with my ex. And I'm not, this is not a dissing, it's just the differences in people, right?
Yeah.
We were struggling with communication, and he brought in an Excel spreadsheet of our communication.
Yes.
And I just, we both looked at him like, okay, well, this seems
right.
So, I mean, but we all just process differently, and but that's what makes the strength, right?
Absolutely.
And if you're hiring, you should absolutely know what your codes are and where your weaknesses are, if you will, if they're weaknesses, and bring someone in to help you, right? That you're hiring to complement.
Yeah, because what's so strong, Cheryl, about being able to discover somebody's epic code, like you're going to hire somebody. You're going to receive a report that tells you, how do you motivate this person? What are their strengths and their weaknesses, their likes and their dislikes, and what are some of the words that they use? And so there's just all types of ways that it's like the Holy Grail, it helps give you a head start on really understanding that person. Why let problems come up only to find out later, if you had only understood that they hear in a different language and how that impacts your relationship, you can do a lot of damage in the interim period by not knowing their language.
Right.
It's really important.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, Cheryl, it looks like you were screen sharing, except you're screen sharing me.
Well, I started to realize that when I want to, I really I stop and then I start, and I really don't need to do that, because if I just click from the PowerPoint over to the big screen when you're talking, then at least we're seeing that piece of it. I don't know. So me in the Hangout stuff, I'm still learning some of this, right? And I love technology, but sometimes I'm still, we're all in that learning curve sometimes with it.
So I've been switching back on me in the big screen, just so that we're not looking at me in the in the screen share, which looks kind of odd.
There's a communication for you.
Yeah.
So let me jump back here.
It's just a reminder that we're all learning.
We're all learning constantly, right? So as we learn, so now I want to kind of to move into sort of celebrating ourselves. And part of that, what I said was when we started this is that we just think of celebrating as just being the fun part. And really, when we celebrate ourselves, it's really about cherishing ourselves and respecting ourselves, respecting others. But sometimes it's work, but it should be fun work, because this is the work that's important to do. And as you know, Dottie, I've really, as part of my kitchen table conversations, had really come up with 4 kind of guiding rules, if you will, that sort of keep up for a meeting. And we're going to talk more about this in the coming programs. But one of the concepts is about living above the mark. And the concept of that is that when you're above the mark, you're taking charge of your life, you own it, you believe in yourself. When you're below that mark, you're usually blaming someone else, you're justifying your actions, or you're actually in denial, right? So, and I remember when I was sharing this with my boys, and this is why I want people to understand, is that it absolutely is something that can impact your life. And David was 13 and he got it. So if David can get it at 13, I know that others can get this concept. But the concept of, when I shared it with them, I thought, well, I don't know if he's really going to understand this. And I said, do you understand that when you are, below that mark, you're literally giving your power away to someone or something? Because only when you step up above it and you say, man, this is my life, I'm responsible for it, that can you make a change. And I know I've shared this, but it's so powerful. And especially coming from a 13-year-old, because I looked at him and I said, does that make sense? And his response was, he says, I totally get it. He said, what you're saying is, like last night when we lost our baseball game, we all sat around and just blamed the umpire. But we never looked at ourselves as a team. So we won't play any better tomorrow night than we did last night.
Wow. Now that's insight, It
was insight, right? And so I was kind of looked at him like, wow, David. And he literally brought this even alive for me in a different way than I had even sort of thought about it, or how impacting it could be. So, I just it's funny when I get to talk to parents, I say, the good news is your kids will absolutely get this. And the bad news is your kids will absolutely get this. And they will also hold you accountable.
They'll hold you accountable.
They will. And I've had it happen. I've had my kids say, gee, Mom, a little below the mark. Right. And
wow.
And go, gee, David, go to your room. No, I don't. I'm kidding. I don't really do that. But the point is that it is a really honest dialogue that you have. And I remember sharing when this started to become something very powerful in our house. Brian came home from school one day and he's like, I said, how was your test? And he said, oh, it was the dumbest test I've ever taken. He says, I don't know what she was. And he stopped himself mid-sentence and literally just paused for a second. And then he looked at me and he said, though, now that I understand how it is that she will test, I guess I need to study for it differently next time.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So very powerful. And we still have conversations about it to this day. And it's all about, but if we're going to really honor ourselves, if we're going to make a change, because if you look at the quote, nothing will ever change while you point the finger of blame. Out of responsibility comes possibility.
I love that. In fact, I was thinking, I want you to send me that picture.
Yeah.
Well, and as I'm looking at this, Cheryl, I'm going to share this with you, because that mark in between above and below, it looks like water. And what occurred to me is, if you live your life, if I live my life below the watermark, I will eventually drown.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to really thrive is to be above the mark. Now, I could tread water and I would survive, but we all survive life until we die. I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. So in order to thrive, there is huge value in taking responsibility. We've talked about Brene Brown talking about that. Owning when we've done harm, owning our apology, owning when we've blamed or whatever. So whatever we've done below the mark, when we take ownership of that, that automatically puts us back above the mark.
It absolutely does. And, it's funny because I've said a couple times to people, like they said, well, what if I'm not ready? I mean, I said, that's okay. If you're below the mark and you know you're below the mark and you're just not ready yet, you can't stay down there forever. I mean, no decision is still a decision. But sometimes we are down, but it's an awareness that, okay, if I'm going to be down here, I just need to understand that while I'm down here, I'm not actually going to be able to make a change.
Right.
Right. So it's not that we always can just jump up and say, oh, I just need to change that. I just need to, think about it differently or do. It's not that easy. It's not like it's an easy thing sometimes to do, but it is an awareness that you're like, that's the definition of insanity, right? So that you get
doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Exactly. But just that awareness, that consciousness is a move towards being above the mark. That's the point. If you don't know that you're below the mark, you're not gonna pull your head above water, and eventually you're gonna drown in it. Your relationships are gonna die. Your business relationships are gonna go south. And time after time, if that happens, Cheryl, when we're having relationships go away, I mean, the truth of the matter is, if you have a history of that, eventually you have to say, what is the common denominator here?
Yeah.
If it's me, then I have to look at that. I mean, all the other people couldn't always be the wrong people. So it allows us to really, if we're interested in truly relating on a deeper level, relating more consistently on a healthy level, then we have to look at our own history of relationships, business, personal, friendship, and otherwise.
Yep. So this has been very, very powerful for our family. It still is. I mean, it is still part of our dialogue. And David is now, like I said, 23. So, because it's really easy sometimes to get there, but that awareness kicks in immediately now because we've talked about it so many times. And that's why we'll talk about the importance of, ingraining this into really, I mean, this is good at a family meeting. Absolutely. But I said to the boys one time, I said, what do you think would happen if everybody in Washington, every leader actually had to live above the mark for even just a day? And David said, I think they'd have to shut it down. And, because everything's about pointing and blaming somebody else. And if we could start a different dialogue about how we take ownership of our lives and then start to seek solutions together with that thought process in mind, I think, we'd all be a lot better off.
And Cheryl, I'm going to show something right now.
Okay.
This is something you gave me, and I had to run get it real quick because I keep it where as I pass in the hallway, I have a dish and it sits right there. And so I pass it multiple times a day. So this does a couple of things. It reminds me of you, Cheryl, my appreciation for you and our relationship, business and friendship, and the power of that, and that I'm dedicated to that. And it reminds me to be above the mark, So thank you so much for giving me that.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we'll talk about that. That's a fun little thing anyway, right? That's a sea bean seed.
Yeah, I love how it feels in my hand.
Yeah, it sort of feels like a buckeye feel, that smoothness of the buckeye.
Listen, my dad, I have to tell you, my dad always kept buckeyes in his pocket.
Oh, yeah?
And it was his gift he always gave to people. And I have a whole little, group of buckeyes that my dad gave me. He's deceased now. And so when you gave me that, I was just like, oh, that feels so much like that. I love the feel of, rocks and things. And I've often carried one in my pocket or something like that. There's just something connected for me in that way.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, because originally when I looked at the concept of putting above the mark on something, we talked about the stones, that you can like rocks that you can get them put onto. And David said, but what if the meeting doesn't go well and somebody takes the rock? I said, that's a good point. And so I thought, wow, what could I do? So I found those and I just fell in love with them because they're organic. They actually grow on something called the monkey ladder vine from South America, and they wash up on beaches all over the world. And then families collect them as a way to earn an income.
Oh, they're awesome. I love it.
They're actually a seed is what they are. So anyway, yeah, that's a fun little thing. And thank you for sharing that. It's nice to know you're still that you still see it and use it. So
absolutely, because I think sometimes we get different things, and we end up in, we liked it and we used it, but then it's in a drawer or something. But no, this is and people often comment, I'll have to share that when they come in our home, they say there's just a spiritual essence about it. It feels good, and that's the highest compliment they can give us, because we want them to feel welcome in our home, and that they do is just the greatest compliment they can give us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's the energy, right, that comes that we share with others. And so let me let's see if I can get back here. And I didn't know if I should take because I know you're flipping over to the big screen, so I just wanted to make sure I was doing that. I'm gonna let's see. I'm going to go to this. So I think that was the next. Yeah, it was the next thing. So I'm going to share this, and I don't, we probably won't get real heavily into this. It sort of has, I guess I just want to share it in the light that it was very, very helpful to me during a really, really difficult time. And part of that time was when I was actually going through my divorce, right? And, but it was all about getting out of that. The victim mindset dilutes the human potential. By not accepting personal responsibility for our circumstances, we greatly reduce our power to change them. So again, it's all about owning it and so forth. But one of the things that was shared to me during that was this thing, and I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, Dottie. Have you ever seen this?
I don't think so. I've seen some similar kind of things, but I don't think I've seen this one.
Well, I want to share this quickly, and this was so helpful to me because of my personality, quite frankly, and sometimes where I get stuck. And there's a lot of people that get stuck inside of this, what they call this triangle. It's like there's actually a name for it, and I'm trying to think what it is, and I thought I'd remember. But it's this cycle we get stuck in, right? So we're the victim. We're in a relationship that's not working for us, and we sort of feel sorry for ourselves, right? But you have to, but eventually you have to say, wow, you know what? If I want to take care of me, and this is what I wanted to say about, this is about taking care of ourselves. And if you're stuck in that and you say, I need to take care of myself, but taking care of me is in direct conflict to maybe the relationship that I'm in. Mm-hmm. And so how do we step out of that? Well, you go down there and you say, okay, I'm going to get out of this. Well, all of a sudden you become the persecutor, right? Because now you're inflicting something on the other person. Does that make sense? But it doesn't really mean that you're the persecutor. And the word that needs to be on here is that you are in their eyes, the perceived persecutor. You're not really a persecutor. You're just taking care of yourself. And sometimes we need to be able to do that. Otherwise we get stuck. Well, what happens to people that don't like being or feeling like they're a persecutor, even though all they're really doing is really nourishing their own soul, is they don't like how they make the other person feel. So they come over here and they become the rescuer, because now they want to make it okay for that person. The second that they become the rescuer, they're back to being the victim.
And this is how a codependent relationship evolves.
Exactly. So it was really hard for me to be okay with the fact that I knew that there were certain family members, especially obviously on his side of the family, that were going to perceive me as bad guy, right? Mm-hmm. But I had to be okay with knowing I'm not the bad guy. I'm just in a relationship that's not working for either one of us.
Yes.
And the only way I could get out of it was to skip over and not go rescue. And it's really hard. So I'm not downplaying how difficult that could be, particularly for certain people. But I will tell you that some people, they're better at this, and I'll give you a really simplistic example, but Brian, when he was probably 10 or 11, was so excited one day to go play with this little boy named Johnny. And he just could not wait to get to Johnny's house. And he went and I dropped him off. And like a half an hour later, he called and he said, can you come pick me up? And I said, yeah. I said, sure. So I went and got him, and I thought, wow, what happened? And I said, well, why are you back so soon? And he said, well, he says, I don't know. He says, all of a sudden I was standing there and he says, I just realized that Johnny always tries to make me feel bad. And I don't really think I need that in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, and I thought, how come I had to take 40 years to figure that out, and you're 10 and you've got it figured out, right? He says, I realized Johnny makes me feel bad, and I don't need that, right? So I think we're all a little bit different in terms of how we process through this. And I didn't want to belabor this, but I think sometimes people are stuck in this and they don't even know they're stuck in it.
Right.
So.
And, you know, when we all, in each of us, begin to celebrate ourselves and our value, then that no longer is okay for us. And we simply don't accept that. And we're able to move to that space of just letting it be a part of the journey.
Yeah, well, and exactly. And that was really what it was I started really wanting to grow, right? Because until we do that, we're kind of stuck. And so as I started doing my own personal growth, I wanted to be healthy. And
Yes.
that desire to be healthy was ultimately what pushed me to go through this, in a positive way. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. So, part of it is to err is human, to forgive is divine, especially ourselves. And I'm willing to bring that out because we need to let go of the guilt, the anger, the blame, the regret, all those things. And I share that because I think people get stuck in those and they don't realize. I mean, I have, there's times that I have this one person who's just still mad at me about something. And I'm like, do you realize that as long as you're mad at me, and I don't want you to be mad, I want you to let it go. I want you to move on. But as long as you are, I literally own you, even though I don't want to.
And lots of times, people don't even know that we're angry at them. So who are we hurting? Ourselves.
Exactly. So it's this burden that we carry around when we don't let go of it. Now, I'm not someone that hangs on to stuff at all. I mean, I just don't hold on to, if I get mad 5 minutes later, I'm usually over it. And I don't even get, that's just not my nature to hold on. But I know for some people that's a harder thing. So I just wanted to at least mention that because we don't grow through guilt. We only grow through awareness. We can't grow through anger. We can't grow through fear. We only grow through love. So all these things that we hold on to hold us back from being the best version of who we can be. So,
sure, one thing I want to just draw attention to is because we're, really talking about get your biz lean. All of these things that Cheryl's been covering are so important because whether they impact your personal life, if these issues are coming up, they're going to impact your business.
Mm-hmm.
Because things either go inside and become often disease or pains or things that happen inside our bodies, or they go out and we spew on people. And so if we have a personal situation where we're having a lot of anger, it's going to be very challenging not to let that seep over into our business. So cleaning up, I guess the point is cleaning up our personal stuff and our personal relationships is the quickest way to move into the next level in your business and relationships.
It really is. And, and then of course we do want to reward ourselves as we make our little things. And I think it's always good to look at how far we've come along the way and do those little things. And that is chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream up there in the right-hand corner, by the way, in case you're wondering, because that's become my favorite thing lately of guilty pleasure. But, and that could put a whole bunch more on here. And I just grabbed a few things. And what the feature presentation was, I love to go to the movies with my boys, especially David, because he laughs at the silliest things. And I think I get more enjoyment out of the movies listening to him laugh, but just something that we share. And so that's obviously something we do want to celebrate that side of it too, because sometimes we've come a long way in areas of our business and our personal lives or whatever, and we need to acknowledge that. And when we do, let's reward ourselves a little bit for that.
Well, I was just thinking, guilty pleasure, isn't that an oxymoron? I mean, I think it's just pleasure.
Pleasure, right?
What might be happen if we were having that 24/7, the ice cream cone, but I just want the pleasure.
Exactly. Well, and that's right, because the guilt's not going to do anything anyway, right? Enjoy it. If you're going to do it, enjoy it, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, this is where I wanted to kind of bring it back full circle. And I know you've probably heard this too, but this is why I sort of wanted to do it in reverse order. This was written by an unknown monk, but I wanted to change the world. When I was young, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realized the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly, I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's all about the reverse ripple is that, as we become healthy, as we become whole, the ripple that we put out can make changes in other people's lives. And I would say when I did the Next Best Brilliant Idea for Humanity, it was so great that I got that opportunity because it really allowed me to see how the impact of what we did around our kitchen table eventually was the change that we wanted to see in the world. How we treated each other, how we communicated with each other. That same process and the same amount of respect and encouragement that we were giving each other at our kitchen tables, the same thing that we should be doing at our boardroom tables and, everywhere as it ripples back out, and obviously an impact that changes the world then. So I think sometimes to look at these things going in both directions and how it just ebbs and flows back and forth to some extent, but ripples go out eventually. And you want to be a part of that change, that you start and you become the change you want to see first.
Cheryl, when we took a year-long journey around the U.S. in 2005 and 6, one of my favorite things, and this is interesting because I love to collaborate, but I also understand the responsibility of being one person and the opportunity. So one of my favorite quotes is by Helen Keller, and it says, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something, and I will not refuse to do the something that I can do." And it plays right back into what you just shared. Because if we start at that level of commitment and with ourselves, then it will have that ripple going the way we want it.
Yes. And then I think too, as we go through this, is a part of the whole piece of what we're trying to do, Dottie, as you know, is to bring, for all of us to step into what it is that's really going to, just excite us. What passions do we have that we really want to experience while we're here? Because it's just, it goes so fast. I don't know about you, but I can't believe I got my AARP card in the mail, I'm like, what the heck? I was like, and I represent the 50s and you're representing the 60s. And, I know Stephanie probably in her 20s right now looks at us and goes, I got plenty of time, but it goes by so fast. What are we doing with it? And, I applaud her because she's in her 20s figuring it out, it's really great when we really step into who it is we're meant to be. And so I love this quote as well, but don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world really needs are people who have come alive. And that's really when no matter who we are, the depths of who we are, when we figure out what it is we're really destined to do and we can step into our passion, man, that's when the impact can really happen. But that doesn't happen without first figuring out that piece, which is, sometimes it's part of the things that we were covering today in terms of how do you get to where you can really share that passion out with people in a really, amazing and powerful way.
Absolutely. I love that, Cheryl.
Go back to, I'll stop sharing. And, that was really, I guess, the crux of it today in terms of, celebrating and understanding the ways that we can honor really just every of our lives, ourselves, others, and the world that we live in, and looking at it, in the big picture, as well as knowing that what we do matters. Every day, what we do matters. And, so the VAX, which I know we do each day, is that I want to encourage people to do the tough work, but to step into their passion and to embrace it. So I would say, I step into my passion and I embrace it. Is maybe, and we want to say it in the current tense, right? We don't want to say I'm getting ready to step into. No, I am in my passion. And I'm making a difference. So we'll say I'm in my passion and I'm making a difference. And that's because that's where we want to be, right? Because that's when we can make our impact. So with the VAX, what you do is you really try to ingrain it into who you are. And Dottie, you brought this up earlier because you were saying about how you have said for so long that you want to bring great people into your lives, right?
Yes.
And it works. And
yep.
I think go ahead. Were you going to share?
Excuse me?
I thought you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I was just saying it works. And I love that you're acknowledging that because, this isn't just some fluff that we're sharing about. There's really scientific data around, the vaccine process. And as you say those statements, I think, Cheryl, to end it today, it's going to be very powerful for people to see you do this and then encourage them, hey, do this as your routine today, or make a statement that resonates with you.
So, find your statement that really resonates. For me, it's going to be, I'm in my passion, I'm making a difference. So, what you do first is that you can get a mirror, you can say it to the person in front of you. I think actually for me, sometimes I like saying it in the mirror, right? I don't know. I even sometimes pick up my deodorant and I act like it's a microphone.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if I should admit that, but I am. But because if you say it like you mean it, right? If you have a microphone, you're saying it with conviction. I'm living in my passion and I'm making a difference. And again, it's all about the tone and how you're doing it, because we just talked about the tone. The power of your words are there, but the power of how you're saying it, where's it coming from? And then the second way that you do it is you rub your ears. I'm in my passion and I'm making a difference. And that brings it, right here, right into that. And it's the power of the touch that also brings it into focus for you. The third way is to get active, which I personally love. I'm just get excited, right? Really be excited about what you're doing. You can jump around, and Dottie was jumping around the first day. See that? But you're jumping around and you're saying, I'm living in my passion and I'm making a difference. And you can do whatever you need to do. I try to I actually tried a cartwheel the other day, and I don't think that was my best choice. But anyway, might have to not forgo that. But then the last one is that you do it from the heart, and you just put your hands right over your heart, and you just say, I'm living in my passion, and I'm making a difference. And I think every day, if you find do that, and Dottie, I guess one of the questions I had for you in the research that you looked at is it good to say the same thing though for a while to really, or do you switch daily based upon, or do you just keep in the same?
One of the key things is to have a different statement each day. And one of the things I would add, if I were doing that, I would say, I'm living in my passion, I'm making a difference, and I'm making an income while I do it. Because honestly, a lot of people are living in their passion, they're making a difference, but they're not making an income, so they can't make as big a difference because not as many people are hearing about it, because eventually they don't have any way to create an income. So I think that my real goal is to make an impact and make an income. And that's really simple. And so I would just say, I make an impact and I make an income. I make an impact and I make an income. I make an impact and I make an income. I make an impact and I make an income. Nice. I make an impact. Yeah. I make an income. So you can change it up how you say it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, very powerful, and thank you for.
This is about business too here.
Oh, absolutely, we do, and as I admit that I used to have the saying I said all the time, and I had it up on my wall. It said, "Have fun, make money, make a difference." And my husband would come in and he'd say, could you just flip those around to say, make money first and then make a difference, and then you can have fun. And I used to kind of laugh because because sometimes obviously money is energy, and yeah. It really is what we're doing with it. Amazing things that we want to go do with it. So yes, we should be embracing that piece.
So it's all energy, making a difference is energy. Fun is energy. Mm-hmm. Money is energy. So if we want to be energized, we need to have money, fun, and making a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's really it for today. Thank you, Dottie. Once again, you're always so amazing to run through these programs with, and to get to share and to give your insight that you bring to it. So, and again, thank you for putting all this together with all of us. And I'm excited. And I will say that the homework we might want to do is to really think about what are the things that we're accepting, the old Yeller quiz, right? What are the things that we're accepting in our life that we might want to take a second look at that we think is normal? I mean, if every morning you get up and you take aspirin because you think waking up with a headache is normal, I can tell you it's not. you shouldn't, it's not a normal thing, right? So you need to look at that because, so there could be a lot of things, what's that you can just just really do a self-evaluation. And if you get out the wheel of health, you can sort of walk through it that way as well. And kind of see what things maybe you just don't realize anymore. Like watching 4 hours of TV every night should not be normal. Yet some people are doing it, right? So just that evaluation.
Well, thanks, Cheryl. Appreciate everything that you're doing, and we look forward to tomorrow's session.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.